All right, this is Module 5 discussion for Chapters 7 and 8. Chapter 7 asks, how and why do the authors differentiate between leadership and management? On page 193, the text lays it out like this. They say organizations are often caught between two conflicting needs. One for managers to maintain the balance of the operations, and one for leaders to create new approaches and imagine new areas. Management is about maintaining the path of the organization and about handling the day-to-day operations. Leadership is about creativity, innovation, and vision for the organization. They do say that leadership and management are symbiotic, and they're both highly necessary for an organization to accomplish its goals. They say that every effective leader has a team of managers and employees who help the leader accomplish the organizational goals. The text breaks it down. There are 4 different themes emerged between the two of them: definitional, conceptual, functional, and behavioral. The definitional differences is leadership is frequently defined in terms of vision, inspiration, and motivation, while management is usually defined in terms of operations. Leadership is defined by the ability to create a vision for the organization that managers can then carry out on a day-to-day basis. The conceptual distinctions our leadership is something that subordinates look up to. A leader would be able to manage well too, but managers are not necessarily good leaders, and subordinates should look up to them for instructions, not guidance. Leadership encompasses management, but is seen as more than just management. The functional divergences. Leadership was characterized by 2 primary functions: challenging and empowering. Leaders should challenge their followers to do more and then empower them to take chances, make decisions, and innovate. Management was characterized by 2 different functions: imposition and stability order. Management should impose guidelines and ideas generated by organizational leadership on their followers in an attempt to create some semblance of stability and order within the organization. And the behavioral differences are managers manage their subordinates' work, and leaders lead by example. And it says that in manage, you just manage, and in leadership, you lead. In management, you enforce the regulations, whereas in leadership, you lead by example. In management, people don't follow you, they obey you. In leadership, people follow you by their own choice. The other question for Chapter 7 is discuss the importance of mentorship and coaching in your desired career track. Still don't necessarily have a desired career track yet, and I don't think I've officially had a mentorship anywhere in my life. I've definitely had coaching throughout every single job I've had. And the text breaks it down into 3 types of coaching: cognitive-based coaching, skills-based coaching, and effective coaching. I do think I've had all 3 of these. The cognitive-based coaching is associated with the acquisition or enhancement of recognition and recall of information and the development of intellectual abilities and skills. So this is the cognitive coaching will be taught on how to recognize and recall information that will help them do their jobs better. This could be from anything from learning how to recognize and troubleshoot problems as they arise in the workplace to more simplistic tasks. The skills-based coaching is the process associated with the acquisition or enhancement of a specific skill that can help someone be more productive or efficient. So these are the motor skills. These are the actual functional things that you're taught how to do at a job. And then there's the effective coaching. It's associated with the acquisition or enhancement of positive emotional reactions to an individual's work and working environment. So this emphasizes a feeling, tone, an emotion, or a degree of acceptance or rejection. Affective objectives vary from simple acceptance to selected phenomena to complex but inherently consistent qualities of character and conscious. It says, in other words, effective coaching examines an individual's emotional reaction to his or her work and working environment. So I would say this is all the coaching on how to feel about your job and how your job is going to view you. For chapter 8, the question is define and differentiate between identity, image, and culture. Page 237 in the text defines organizational identity as the internal perspective of members who identify with the organization and base their interpretations of the organization on internal information rather than with what outsiders say. So this would be, the organizational identity would be how all the members themselves identify with the organization and how they feel about it. The organizational culture emerges as members express their collective identity, and in doing so, collectively form an unconscious assumptions and meanings that shape everyday organizational life. So all the members have their identities. When those identities form together, the organizational culture emerges. And the organizational image is the external perspective of outsiders who do not identify with the organization and base their interpretations of the organization on multiple sources. So this is how people who aren't members view the organization and their culture, which is born out of the members' organizational identity. The other question is discuss the similarities and differences between organizational identity and identification. Discuss the role of concerted control. I'm still kind of stuck on this concept. I think they're confusing and I have a hard time differentiating between the two. The text states while organizational identity may be developed by an organization, organizational identification may be developed by the members. So I think that's what it's saying is the identity is developed by the organization, how the members feel about the organization, and the identification is the perception of oneness or belonging to a group involving a direct or vicarious experience of its successes and failures. So I think it's saying that the organizational identification is how the members view themselves within that organization and how they belong, whereas the identity is formed by, see, I don't know. This is where I get confused. I don't know. Maybe someone else can explain it better. Concerted control is through which management induces employees to discipline themselves, and approved corporate attitudes and behaviors come to seem natural and normal until these values become the goals that motivate members and form their sense of obligation. So the concerted control is one of the ways that organizations deploy communication to control their members. So I feel like this is the way they're controlling them without actually controlling them. These are the processes they've set up that the employees follow just because that's the way people always do it. Not so much the policies and procedures that are written down like in stone, but these are the things that people do because people have always done them and now it seems normal. I think that's what they're saying. All right, for the case study questions for Chapter 7, this is Section 1, Management and Leadership. I'd say an idea that ties to the case study is Hersey and Blanchard's situational leadership theory. The theory of leadership starts with the basic notion that not all followers need the same task or relationship-based leadership. So the type of leadership a leader should utilize with a follower depends on the follower's readiness. So I think in this situation from the case study, Kate was wanting leadership. She was wanting someone to follow, whereas the other coworkers were kind of set in their ways. They were happy with the way things were going, and they didn't necessarily need a different type of leader that she felt she did. From the second section in Chapter 7, I would say that Kate could be described as a disgruntled follower. She could be described as a follower who has encountered some event within the organization that has left them feeling detached, angry, or displeased, which leads to low levels of job satisfaction and productivity. I think this relates to the case study. When thinking about the black hole that it references, I think the black hole could be determined the event that is making her question kind of everything about the job. The third section of Chapter 7 is on coaching and mentorship. On page 220, I feel like Kate from the case study felt like she was going to get a mentor in Donaldson with the CEO when he brought her on board. I feel like she thought she was going to get some of the outcomes, such as career commitment, career opportunity, career recognition, employee motivation, job satisfaction, lower levels of work stress, organizational commitment, performance and productivity. And I don't feel like she felt like she was getting that whatsoever. Right, the first section in Chapter 8 on identity, image, and culture talks about the risks of organizational identity. I think this was relevant to the case. The text says that an organization's identity can precondition its leaders and members to see certain problems and ignore others, to favor certain solutions and forgo other options. The way an organization chooses to manage issues and communicates its position can become self-referential, or mainly about affirming its own organizational identity. Through communication, though communications seem to be directed towards others, they may actually be auto-communicative, that is, directed primarily toward the organizational self. I feel like this was going on at the company. The problems of the black hole, which everyone was aware of, they kind of chose to ignore it and just kind of move on with their lives. I don't know if that goes or not. Okay, Section 2 of Chapter 8 talks about identity regulation, which is defined as a means of organizational control in which managerial interests engage in discourses that shape how employees form their workplace identities and thus produce the appropriate employee. I feel like the mode of discourse that was happening in the case study was establishing and clarifying the distinct rules of the game. An example the text gives: a team player ethos causes employees to rein in their own traits so others do not feel threatened. I feel like in the case study, when they were having the team meeting and Kate questioned one of the other employers, and they basically jumped down her throat and said, that's not how we do things. We're a team player. We don't question anybody. So through that discourse, she was starting to form her identity about the organization. Okay, and the last section in chapter 8, I'm going to talk about the work-life balance, which is a term often used to describe the issues that arise as individuals attempt to balance the sometimes conflicting demands of their work and their personal life. I feel like this ties to the case study. You know, Kate, she's new at the company. She's trying to figure out what her place in the organization is while still kind of maintain who she is. She moved away from her friends, her family, her town, her old job, kind of everything she knew. So I feel like she's feeling a little bit lost in her personal identity, and she's feeling lost in her organizational, I don't know if it'd be identity or identification. But that's how I related that concept to the chapter. And I think that's it. And that's a long video. All right, thank you.